Okay, so I'm trying to find somewhere to set my phone so that the professor here can tell us all about Hanukkah, the reason for the season and whatnot. I think I can see you here. Don't have any boogers? No,
I don't think so.
Okay,
Nope.
there we
All
go.
right. Hello. All right. So, the story of Hanukkah. Now, let's start with the original version because it's been revised many, many times over the years. So the original story of Hanukkah, and I warned Shelley this was going to be one which was full of likely inaccuracies, and the first inaccuracy is going to be the time. Let's say 7th century before the Common Era, question mark. So, it's the 7th century before the Common Era, and a bunch of the Jewish community is living in the Seleucid Empire. The Seleucid Empire being the Greek end of what was left after Alexander the Great's conquest kind of broke apart. So the Seleucids, they're basically Greek, following up from Alexander the Great conquering the world, or conquering the near western part of the world. So, the Seleucids, they're basically Greek. They basically worship the Greek gods. And, of course, the Jewish community is not thrilled about being under Greek rule. Now, when I say the Jewish community, I really mean the extreme religious end of the Jewish community, because there were lots of Jews who were kind of cool with Greek rule and who had gotten pretty comfortable and pretty assimilated and pretty chill about the whole thing, and went out and did the ceremonial sacrifices to Zeus to be governors of wherever or whatnot. So, there were hardcore Jews and there were, mellow assimilated Jews. And this was the sort of culture that was around in the 7th century when a religious zealot, let's call him a zealot, we can come up with other terms, some of them less pleasant. So a religious zealot who later became known as Judah Maccabeus. Maccabeus, of course, simply being a word for hammer, but he had some other name at that point, which, me being very fragmentary about the story, I don't know, but... So, Judah Maccabeus, let's call him that because that's what history calls him, was not real happy about the whole, you're under a Grecian empire, and to have a job in the government you have to sacrifice to Zeus, and a bunch of Jews seem to be okay with this thing. So Judah Maccabeus was not cool with any of this shit. So he decided that the best way to deal with it was the way people have dealt with religious conflicts since time immemorial, with inordinate and disproportionate violence. So, Judah Maccabeus goes out, he kills a couple of Greeks, an awful lot of assimilated Jews. So basically, Judah Maccabeus and his followers, the Maccabees, they go out and commit an act which, could arguably be termed genocide. At the very least, it is an act of tremendous intolerance, which promotes a rather hostile response from the seat of the Seleucid Empire, the Greek authorities. And amazingly, they win several battles against the Seleucid authorities and win eventually a certain quasi-independence for Judea. So that's what Hanukkah celebrates, is this uprising and military victory, and we tend to kind of soft pedal the genocidal bits, which don't play well, but that's what Hanukkah's about. Now, fast forward a couple of centuries, there's Christian persecution, there's all sorts, Jews are once again basically a subject people. This whole we killed the people who didn't think like us approach to a holiday wasn't really flying. Oh, and by the way, during this entire period, and continuing after this period, Hanukkah was a very minor holiday. The big holidays celebrate ancient biblical events. Nobody gave a shit about Hanukkah. Hanukkah was less important than Shavuot, and if you're not Jewish, you've never even heard of Shavuot. So Hanukkah, not a big deal, but the optics are starting to look a little bit bad once Jews are once again on the oppressed end of a major world religion, and sort of the kill people who don't think like you approach no longer looks good on Jews. So they add in this whole miracle of lights that while the temple was under siege, the menorah, even though they had enough oil for one day, burned for 8 nights. And again, we've actually documented this pretty extensively. I say we as if I had anything to do with it. This has been documented extensively. It's basically a medieval addition to the entire legend, is this whole miracle of lights folderol. So that's basically the part that became ascendant, because again, it works a little bit better than actually focusing on, hey, why were the Greeks besieging the temple in the first place? Because the Jews killed a lot of Greeks and assimilated Jews. Yeah, so focusing on the menorah stayed lit bit. All right. Now, everything else about Hanukkah, turns out, is also a latter-day addition. Most of them a very recent innovation, 17th century or later. Most of them German, because the Jewish diaspora from the 17th century onwards was mostly Central to Eastern Europe. So there's actually some exhaustive research on how the dreidel, that's really developed from a German betting game. And latkes, there's tons of prior art in fried potato foods, and clearly latkes themselves are a post-Columbian innovation, because potatoes didn't exist in the old world until then. Sufganiyot, those are apparently a 20th century innovation, which had something to do with an Israeli Bakers Guild? I don't know. You can read about all this stuff online somewhere if you look for it, and it's kind of fascinating that, well, I mean, the reason it's a big deal nowadays is so as to have something to celebrate opposite Christmas. But historically, Hanukkah, not a big deal. Go back far enough, Hanukkah celebrates genocide. You want to give presents and you're a Jew? Wait till Purim, that's the traditional day to do it. Thank you. Was that silly? Was that absurd?
Oh.
Was that a second beer kind of talk?
That was a lovely second beer kind of talk.
It is all honest to God true. I mean, except for the parts I'm not super sure on. It is all, as far as I can tell, true.